Hey everyone, thank you for watching me here in this video where I'm going to use Python to parse XML. And this is part of the DevNet journey that I've been going on with where I'm trying to learn how to do scripting with Python in order to query and get information from network devices. So this is all part of the learning experience that I've gone through. And in this demo that I'm using, I'm actually going to use a Cisco DevNet sandbox. And so what I have here is part of the script that I've already started working on, because what we're going to do is get information from a mobility services engine sandbox. This URL or this server has been available on the DevNet sandbox, available for us to use, and it's part of their labs. And so what we're going to do is get information from that sandbox and get specific information that we're looking for. And the first thing that we need to do is import the libraries that we're going to use. And the libraries that we're going to use to parse XML, for example. And so the first one is XML, DOM, minidom. And I'll show you some documentation as well. The second module is going to be requests. If you've seen my previous video where I was making queries to the Meraki sandbox, I was using the request module to make those get requests to get data. And then I'm going to import this URL lib3 because when I was making my get requests, I was getting these insecure request warnings and I just wanted to suppress those. And so by importing this module, this URL lib3 module, I was able to look up what to do to disable that warning, and I could probably show you what it looks like in this script. But before I go further on in this script, I do want to show you the documentation for some of these modules because it is useful in order to use these the right way. And so the first one is going to be the realpython.com website. They have a whole guide on the Python request library. So we're going to make a get request. We're going to look at some query string parameters and also some SSL certificate verification. And I'll link to this down below in the description because this is how you're going to learn to use the request module. So I highly recommend going through this. You could also find this documentation on pypy.org/project/requests. A lot more official documentation on the request module with examples of how to use it. And the minidom library you can find over here on docs.python.org. And what we'll do is use some of these XMLs part of the library here, especially this one here, to parse a string in order to get the XML output. All right, so what do we got to do here? So we need a URL. We need to figure out what to query. And from the mobility services engine, I was able to find this URL here, which is pretty long, right? So essentially what this is doing is I'm going to make a get request to this server and pull out some map information on a DevNet campus, a specific building called the DevNet zone. And so I will put that into this variable called URL. That's what I'm going to use in my requests module to make that get request. Now, what we do need, I was messing around with some other scripts. We don't have a payload to put out there. We're just doing get requests. So we don't really need this payload, but we do need headers. And headers, we're going to add the type of authorization. And for this specific lab environment, I'm using a basic authorization. This is the key that you use to get authorized to get information. And then we're going to look for the XML content type. So once we have the URL and the headers, we could make out our get requests. And what I want to do is the response that I get back, I'm going to put that into its own variable. And let's just say I'm going to call this response. And then this is where we begin to use the request module. So again, you got to make sure request is installed and then import it into your Python file. So to do that, we're going to do requests.requests to make a request. And as you read the documentation, we're going to make a get request because we're getting information. And so you can see that in this library here where we do the get requests. And so there's a few ways to do it. You could do it this way, request.get. You could do it this way and then specify get. So there are different ways to do it. I'm going to use this method as part of the methods that I learned. And what we could do is modify it so we can maybe follow the way it's done in the real Python guide, for example. So with that get request, we're going to pass the URL. So we want to make a get request to the URL. So I'm passing this variable, and the variable contains this link here to where we're going to get our information. And then we want to pass the headers. So we're going to say headers, and the headers are actually contained in this variable, headers. And so it's going to pass all of this information across. Now, when you do this request, because this server is using a self-signed certificate, you're going to get these warnings and it's not going to work. So we just want to do a verify, and we're not going to verify it all. We're just going to say false. And so this is just to suppress some of those warnings that we're getting. And so now if we actually run this script, we should be able to get nothing, basically. So I'm in the directory. What did I name this file? I called it parse XML.py. Should just return nothing, hopefully. Yeah. And so I know the script ran. I didn't get any error messages. So what I want to do is maybe print response. What do we get if we print this out? What is the response? So the response is 200. So we have content in there. One way that I like to verify what this is by adding a type with response encased in there. So print, and included inside of print is a type function that will tell me what type of, like what is the response exactly. And if I run that script, it's saying it's a request models response. It's a class. And so what we want to do is get what the content inside of response, right? So one way to do that is I'll create another variable. I'll just call it R for short, and I'll do response.text. Now I had to go look up how to get the content of the response because it'll also include other headers and things like that. But this is a way to retrieve the content of that response and convert that into a string. Okay, so now if we do print R, we're taking what was given back to us in this request, which is now contained in response, and then we're just going to convert that into a string using .text and then put that into R. So if we print R now, after I didn't save the file, but let me save it. So we go back here, clear the screen. I'll do Python 3 parse XML.py. So looks like we've got an XML response now. So now it's a string because I've converted it. We could even do print type R. So at the end of all that XML output, we should see what type it is. And you can see down here, it's a string. But you can see if I scroll back up, here's the root of the XML element, right? So it says XML version. And then we've got other sub-elements here. And it's just really difficult to go through right now, right? So we can see data in here. It's just, I don't know, just by looking at you really got to stare at it to see what you're looking at. It's hard. So once I had that output, I learned that you could use the XML or the minidom module to make this look nicer. And so we're going to parse this XML output. So I'll create another variable called XML parse. And what I want to do is use the minidom. So xml.dom.minidom. And then remember back at this Python documentation, we're going to use this parse string because R is a string that contains the XML output. So we're going to return a document that represents the string, and it's going to parse that out. So we do parse string. I think it's parse string, right? And we're going to pass R into that. So now we should have an actual XML document, return to document. It's more XML like. So we could actually print this and see what that looks like. You know, I might as well print out the type just so we could see it. I should do type XML parse. Save that file, head back over to my terminal. I'll clear this out for now. So we can see now it's a minidom document and the class. So what we could do with this, because it's now parsed with minidom as XML, we could actually see this as a XML output. And to do that, there is another function in here within XML minidom. I think it's called toXML. Here it is. And so what it'll do is return a string containing the XML represented by this minidom node. And so what we'll do here instead now is if we go XML equals, what's the node? It's a DOM object. So we would do toXML node dot toXML. So we want to take the node, which was this. That's going to be our node, XML parse dot toXML, because we're calling the minidom here. And then we want to, I think that's just all it's going to be, I believe. So what we could do is print XML, and it should print it out as XML. We haven't gotten to the parsing part yet, but we're getting there. We're getting there. Hopefully this works. Let's see. All right. I probably should have done type as well, just to see that what kind of type of data this is. So it's still a string, but we've printed it out to actual XML. Now I just wanted to show you that because this does it, parses it as a string. This takes that string and puts it out to XML as described here. Return a string or byte containing the XML represented by the DOM node. The other thing too, if you look down here, is we've got two pretty XML. So we could make this readable. So that's what I actually want to use. And so what we're going to do is instead of toXML, we're going to do two pretty XML. And then we could print out that variable there, and it should be readable to us. And now we could look at the document, the XML output, and see what we want to retrieve from it and parse out. So if I do Python 3, we should now look at that. It's much more readable, right? We know what we're looking at. We know what the sub elements are, and there's information that I want to parse out of this specifically. Now, this is just an example. You can get a lot more elaborate with this as you get move forward with DevNet and Python. And I'm just getting started. So one of the things that's interesting to me is wireless. So what I want to do is look at these access points. So I notice that access point is a sub element that is of interest to me. And we could see that access point contains like this MAC address, IP address. Here's the name of the access point. And you can tell that as you look at access point, and so here's the start element and end element of access point, and then there's another access point. So here's the other name of another access point. So let's say I want to grab just a list of access points, their names, and maybe some other information, maybe the MAC address and IP address. All right. So to do that, we would have to then loop through all of the, create a for loop by creating a list of these access points. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to remove this print statement, and I'm going to rename this because XML is just a little vague. I'm just going to call it pretty XML because it looks nice. But I don't know if we actually need that. We actually just need this statement here. This was just for reading purposes. Although, yeah, we could comment it out because let's say we might go back to it. And so now I want to just get access points, right? So with minidom, there is a way to go through these elements. And so let's see if I can find it here. Oh, this is going to be hard. Is it element tag? I know it's called tag name. I think that was what it was called. Elements by tag name. So what I'm trying to find here is here's an example. I want to get the tags from the XML output, and one of those is called access point. And so we want to get the usage. How do we use element tag name? I was pretty sure it was here somewhere. Document tag name. Well, let me see if I can try to pull this off from memory. So I'm looking for access points. So I'm going to create a new variable called access points. Let me use underscore here. And we're using XML parse to get tag elements. That's the hard part. So here it's calling the DOM object. So for me, that's XML parse, and I'm going to do get elements by tag name. Get elements by tag name. I think that's correct. Yeah. Not sure if the syntax uppercase matters. And then we want to say what that tag name is. And here it's in parentheses. So we want to get access point. So we want to get the exact name. So it's just access point, single word, but uppercase A and uppercase P. So I'll go back here. I'll say access point. All right. So should we be able to print that out and see what that is? Let's see. So now I'm gone here. So here it's giving us like a list, right? So it's a DOM element. Here's an access point. Here's another one. It's just giving us a list of access points. So it looks like there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them, right? So it's not exactly what we want. So we need to do a for loop over those. So let's create a for loop. Access point. I'm going to say for access point in access points. We want, let's just print access point. Should that give us the name? I don't know if it will yet. Let's see. It's just printing it out one by one, but we want the name, and I think we got to use, again, like these element tag names, get. And actually, it's not a tag because let me print this out again. Print pretty XML. I got to correct that because I'm actually printing this output. So if we look at the output here, so we've got this element. And if you remember how to work with XML, XML has attributes. So we actually want to get some attributes. So the attribute would be the name. So in order to get that, if I go back, so I always go back to referencing the documentation. We want to look at attribute. So if I'm just doing a search, I'm looking for attributes, anything that contains the name attribute. And we want to figure out how to get an attribute. And I think I'm not looking at the full documentation here. Sorry, guys. I think it is get attribute. So let me try that. I'm just pulling that from what I remembered. So print access point, but we're gonna use the minidom attribute, and we need to tell Python what attribute we want to get, and it should just be name. All right, so if we do that, now instead of just printing out these guys, we should get the attribute of access point, which should be the name. And I do want to comment this out so we don't get that output. Then we rerun the script. And so there you go. I've actually parsed out the XML document and have shown you that I created a for loop to show you that now I can see the list of names. So what I want to do is show you side by side what I'm looking at here. So let me move this document to this side, and I'll move this document over here just so we can see side by side what we're dealing with. And so as I move this document, I'm just moving windows that you can't see out of my way. We've made a GET request to this URL. We're authorized to log into this box and get information. And we take that response and convert it to text. And then we use minidom to do some XML parsing. We're parsing the string and putting that into this variable XML parse, which then I use minidom to actually get a specific tag name. And I place that into access points. And so I'm looking for, it grabs all the access points and puts it into this variable access point. And actually, if I print out, I don't know if I did this already. It was a list. It should be a list. Go here. Access point. Oh, you know why? Because I left out an S. Save that again. Yeah, so it's a node list, XML class node list. And then what we're doing is creating a for loop to iterate through this and print out each access point's name. And we're getting the attribute from that XML element called name. Now we could get more creative here. Like let's say, of course I cleared my scroll back. I want to show you the XML. Let's say we wanted to query specific information, right? So we were looking at access point, we got the name, but what if we also wanted to print out its MAC address and IP address? So you could do the same thing. So instead of printing it out all in a print statement, I could just create some variables. So I can do AP name and do access underscore point dot get attribute and call for the name. And then I could also create AP MAC address. And we're doing the same thing. We're just going to call a different attribute. And we're going to call for this one, ETH MAC address. All right. And then let's say we want the IP address too. So AP IP access underscore point dot get attribute. And then it's just IP with an uppercase A on address. And then what we can do in this print statement is call those out. So what I could do is I could do something like a format string here. So what I'm going to do is say this so this is what I wanted to show. AP name, and then bracket, and I'll show you this format string that I'm going to do. And then what we want to do is add in a tab. I'm indenting a bit. So I'm creating like a poor man's table here. I don't know how to create tables in Python, so I'm just using a string to create it for me. And then I want to say MAC address. Then we'll indent again. And I want to say IP address. Oh, but you know what I'm missing? I'm missing this bracket, and I'll show you what this does. IP address. So what I'm going to do is a format string here, and what this will do is, see these curly brackets? I'm going to tell Python what to put in those curly brackets. So this is a little bit more, you're getting a little bit more from parsing. We've already parsed out XML, and now I'm going to just print it in a way that looks a little bit nicer than just a list, right? And I'm getting more information than just the access point name. So what we're going to call here is AP name, because that's the first one there. Then we're going to call AP MAC, because that aligns to this bracket, these brackets here. And then we're going to call the last one, which is the IP address, which, if I can see what I'm typing, AP, and I said _IP. So let's see if that works. All right. We'll go back here. Let's clear this out. So what I'm expecting it to look like is this. See down below, it's of course I didn't comment these out, so I got all the XML also. We'll run it again. So now I've parsed out the XML and created a format string to include in a for loop, went through each AP and got its name, its MAC address, and its IP address, and it's just printing it down. So you could try to be creative with this kind of output. You could make a front end interface that shows all this information, or you could script something if you're trying to iterate through a router and just display some information. This is one way to do it. So hopefully this was useful for you. If you thought it was, hit the like button and subscribe to this video or subscribe to my channel if you want to get more videos like this. But this is how I've been starting to learn how to programmatically work with routers and switches and other network devices. It doesn't have to be wired devices, but also access points as well. And so using this XML parsing with Python has really helped me grab certain information that I want and use them in whatever projects I'm using, just to speed things up a little bit. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I want to thank you for watching. I'll see you on the next video. Thank you.